Hey everybody, welcome to Playbook by Laserforce Loveland. This podcast is a platform for laser tag players to geek out about strategies, stories, and ongoings in the Laserforce scene, and for you to join us as another player at the table. My codename is Mischief, and I'm a player from Loveland, Colorado who loves to talk about tag, and tonight I'm joined by... Oh no, help! The Resupply are taking over my podcast! Someone help me! By Death Knight, Guy Next Door, and Old Man Thanatos. Welcome on, guys.
What's up, dude? I'm so glad that we could be here to, show you rookies how to run a proper podcast.
Please. Gosh, I need the help so badly.
It's well documented. Not only my insecurities as a fellow podcaster, but that you youngins have come in and done it in such a better way than us. Sorry, different way.
A different way.
Different. I'm not going to say better. I'm definitely going to say different. Well,
the difference is they actually talk about laser tag on their laser tag podcast.
Oh, right.
But we know nothing about disc golf.
Yeah, well, we dedicate 20 minutes each week to talk about how corporate life sucks. And then maybe we'll talk about some laser tag. It's great.
Corporate life does suck. I mean, it's real life, man. It's real life.
I wouldn't know. I don't live in the real world. It's great.
You've never lived in the real world, Steve-O. That is entirely accurate. In the entire time I've known you, well, no, not in the entire time I've known you. You have worked a corporate job in the time I've known you, but that was so many years ago.
Many years ago. A couple decades even.
Yes. Yeah, I know this is only radio, but if you could see what's behind Guy Next Door, you would know that he doesn't live in the real world.
Now that it's not your podcast, you guys have permission just to go completely off the rails. You don't have to talk about laser tag.
Well, hang
on. Have you seen our podcast?
Yeah. There's less flashing lights here so far, but I mean, I told you just before we went live, at some point I'm going to zone out because I'm trying to win some Lego on an auction site. So if I go quiet, it means the auction started.
It really will be the full resupply experience that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Without flashing lights and dinging bells to distract Steve, we would never have any kind of product anyway.
That's right.
So the topic tonight, to keep, because we do talk about some tag on this show, is how to run a high quality Laserforce tournament. And the Resupply suggested that we talk about our extensive tournament experience. And before Than makes an old joke, I'm going to just say these three guys are old and they have way more experience than I do. But I've been.
Well, that was a good show. Sorry we had to wrap up so soon.
So we've all played some tournaments, seriously, over the last 10 years, and I joined in 2015. How long have you guys been playing?
10.
For real?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right, Dan, start us out.
All right, so yeah, I've been playing since February of 1997. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There are definitely players in the scene that I've been playing longer than they've been alive, and that bothers me every time it comes up. But I've been organizing tournaments in various ways, shapes, and form since 1999. There's a practical reality where the reason why Laserforce has a tournament scene in the U.S. is because of myself and Goofball, who is, now the Laserforce Loveland owner, among many other things. But, for purposes of this discussion, the important part is that he owns Loveland laser tag.
The true OGs.
He goes by Waffle Raptor now.
Waffle.
Wow.
Adopting the great Loveland tradition of changing your name too much.
Yeah.
Yuck.
So, but basically since from 1999, I want to say through about 2018, I don't think there was a tournament a Force tournament in the US, as well as a great number of them in Australia and New Zealand, that I did not have some form of involvement with, either as a full coordinator or or just helping out. So I've been doing this a while. I've done it in a variety of different roles, and it's actually been kind of nice the last few years to not have to be so directly involved with things and see things continue to go very, very well without me, which gets into a whole thing that will be a topic of conversation later. But yeah, been doing this for a minute as far as that goes. DK, your turn.
Well, unlike Than, I am a real spring chicken, and I've been playing since June of 1997. Cool. So obviously, bringing that youthful energy to the podcast right here. I have not spent quite as long on the organizational side as Than, because I was still a bit younger than him, even though we started about the same time. But he started pulling me in to help work on some stuff right around like 2002, 2003, 2004. There were not a lot of other people who were real involved in the Sacramento scene, and we kind of had to rebuild it. So just kind of naturally got involved in the organizational side there. Then once things came back to Laserforce Sacramento in late 2008, and we started doing tournaments again in 2009, Van wasn't able to go to the first US Nats that we had in 2009, and even though he spent a lot of time organizing it, I definitely was kind of the side consultant on that. And the truth is, these things are always a team effort. There's always a whole host of individuals who contribute to the organizing. But that was probably one of my first roles in being kind of like the official name that was on the organizational event or whatever, even though really the Detroit guys kind of helped organize that. And then going up to 2017, that was really my kind of primary hosting year, where we hosted the tournament in Sacramento. Unfortunately, we came up short in the tournament itself, but I think the tournament week itself was pretty good. And since then, I have kind of faded a little bit more in the background, but I've still been either a co-host, co-organizer, or just consultant for various tournament organization that's been going on right up through last week. We did Random Draw in Syracuse. So I certainly can't take much, if any, credit for any of that event other than just offering some ideas here and there. But I am always happy to talk to people about organizing tournaments because I know it is a lot of work.
Well, unlike these guys, I haven't been playing since the 1900s. I started.
God, when you say it like that, it sounds so fucking terrible. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'll give you credit. The late 1900s.
So much better.
20th century.
Yeah, I started playing. I started playing in the year 2000s when I joined. But I started playing competitively in 03. G&D since 03. None of this changing your name bullshit. But because I've had the luxury of being able to go to tournaments, like Than obviously lived out our way for a long time. Well, for a time. It seemed longer than it was, but it was only what, like 3 years?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. I mean, yeah, but his legacy, it still lives on. But I had the luxury of being able to rely on other people to organize shit for me. So I didn't really dip my toe into the organizational side of things until I want to say we had a regional tournament in 2017. I think it was like just a local league, which was very bad, partially because of the organization. But I technically the TD for 2023. That's
2020 through 2023. It was literally 4 years in the making.
Yeah, and even then, as like any good kind of organizer should do, is I lent on the expertise of others to help get it done. So there's no point, I don't think, in trying to reinvent the wheel, especially when we're surrounded by people who've been doing it since the 1900s and can help in so many. People can't hear that middle finger, mate. You need to turn it up. But yeah, but you know, I've had hand in a couple of like other regional tournaments and stuff as well. So not nearly as seasoned as the other two Resupply hosts. But yeah, where I lack in experience, I make up for in loudness. I very loudly shout things at people. So yeah, that's where I'm sort of. That's my history.
Get him out of here. Bring in Beans. Somebody actually knows what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, he's way louder than me. You hear him from here.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys giving us that background. I feel like I should just throw in, I haven't really coordinated any tournaments except I somewhat helped coordinate the Duos tournament. That was like the first time that format came about in 22, but beyond that, other people have mainly done it. So I've mostly gotten to experience it from just a player standpoint. And I will suck up to you all now, but also genuinely, maybe I represent the community, and thanks for all the work you've done to help put on tournaments and cultivate the scene, and just, you know, trying to be good role models for people about like, hey, yeah, this is stressful, but we need to be fair to people. We need this to be fun for people. We're constantly innovating and advocating for how we can make this scene better. And that's partially the point of tonight. Just, you know, even just this last year, I would say the contrast between the two tournaments that have been hosted, Nats and Random Draw. Well, I guess this is 25 now. But like, there's a big difference in the intentionality, the way that it was run, the way people felt about it. And it just sparked the idea of going forward, like as the scene is changing, how are high quality tournaments put on? What are the key ingredients that we need? What are things that we need to keep out? And also about the different formats, like what do people prefer? So we got a whole bunch of directions to go with this conversation. And I'm curious if any of you have something on the tip of your tongue that you want to start with.
Tough one, because it partly comes down to what do we mean by high quality? Because you talked a little bit about just the feel of an event, and obviously it is a different feel being at a small regional random draw tournament versus hosting the international Laserforce Championship of the world, where the belt is on the line and the best of the best come to play. Like, it's a little bit of a different atmosphere, and putting on a high quality tournament should in some way reflect that atmosphere. For something like a Nats, you do want to go all out. You do want to make it competitive. You want to stress the competitive elements of the tournament by making the games as high quality as possible and by really emphasizing excellence in the gameplay. For something like a random draw, it might be a little bit more about the ambiance, about making sure that everybody feels that they've gotten a fair shake at the tournament, about trying to develop newer players in a way that isn't always possible at a nationals. So it really does kind of depend on the tenor of the event, what you mean by like hosting an excellent tournament. But kind of regardless of what format you're doing, like, you do want to leave time and room for socialization and for not just making the tag itself be the be all end all of the week. Like, that's all why we're all there, but that's gonna happen. Regardless of anything else that we do, we're going to be playing a lot of laser tag. So anything you can add on to that really, I think, helps build up the true sense of community, because that's what's going to keep people coming back in the long term. So doing stuff, even like having something as simple as having a catered lunch one day, arranging some kind of social outing, just having like a really good end of tournament experience. Even at sometimes when there's been a bad air at a tournament all week, just having a good celebration on the last night does a lot to just sort of dispel any demons and get people thinking like, man, that was a great week. That was a great tournament. That was a great
it's cathartic,
I can't
right?
wait to do it again. It is cathartic. And that's probably something else we just need to address, is like the need for catharsis in some of those intense events.
Well, yeah, I think that's one of the things that, like, you know, kind of up until the 2006 Nats in Auckland, by and large, you know, previous national tournaments, or tournaments just in general, which at that point were pretty much just national tournaments. I don't think we really had any like smaller regional stuff.
Certainly not in
really,
Australasia.
Yeah, really until like the 2009, 2010 era.
Oh, really?
In the States for sure. But basically everything like pre 2006, regardless of where it was very much just specifically around tag, and there wasn't really any outside social stuff happening. You can go back and talk to Tragedy and Night Owl, who are very experienced Australian players, and you can ask them what the vibe and feel of the Australia New Zealand tournaments were like 2005 and before.
Trying not to murder each other is real name of the game.
Well, 2003 was awful. It was like sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but
this ain't my show.
but to your point, 2003 in Oakley, as far as I'm aware, is one of the absolute closest that like things have ever come to there being like a full on brawl.
It was brutal
at a tournament.
Goodness.
It's either Oakley or Fake Nats in 2016. It's one of those two.
One of those two. Well, I was talking to I happened to actually catch up with Mental this week. Mental, long time Oakley commander, great player. But
that's part of his charm.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's at the center of some of the Laserforce controversies of the past.
Yeah, but like just due to personality conflicts, like there were massive clashes at that tournament, and as a direct result of that, nobody wanted to intermingle. Like we did as traveling Aucklanders, because we were like, I had only been playing a couple of months, and I was ready to get out and be social, and meet new people, which is very not social? Really my person. Yeah, it's out of my comfort zone.
Weird.
But people weren't really up to doing it. So yeah, I think you're right then. Like up until that point, when 2006 hit, the feedback was this was the best Nats ever. Like this was like everyone had a great time. We went out, we socialized, we all had dinner together multiple nights. Like, a bunch of, I was supposed to go with them, but a bunch of the crew went down to Rotorua and did, the luge and all that kind of stuff down there, and they loved it. And yeah, it's since then it's been kind of the for me. As a player and as someone who's now organizing tournaments, that's my goal. My goal at a Nats is, all right, like you said, DK, the tags are going to happen. What's the social aspect look like? And the social aspect is the thing that usually is the lasting memory from those tournaments. Like, even if it's just, we all went to Denny's and we talked until 2 a.m. about, like, how the day went and, like, past tournaments and, all that kind of stuff. Or like going to a daiquiri bar and getting shit-faced. Like proper white girl wasted. Like that kind of stuff. But that's the stuff that lasts. Like, the tag does as well to a point. But yeah, leaving a lasting impression is definitely important from a tournament perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting that we all get together for the tag, and yet some of the non-tag things are the most important parts of a tournament. I almost wonder sometimes why we don't get together and go bowling or do some completely different sport. Like, why don't we fly out just to be together? What makes the laser tag so crucial?
Well, I mean,
it is what we all got interested in the first place. And anytime you attach the name tournament to something, it's gonna add just a little bit of that competitive element to the atmosphere, because it's kind of a crazy thing, especially since I don't have a site right now and haven't for years. Just spending a few $100 every few months to get on an airplane, go to another state, rent a car, stay in a hotel or an Airbnb for maybe 3 nights of laser tag. So I'm spending, the hundreds of dollars to play, if I'm lucky, like 50 games, maybe in the span of a few days. And that's a tall ask for a lot of people. Because I love you guys. I love spending time with you. But if you call me up and ask me to come bowling in Denver for 3 days, I'm going to have to go ahead and pass on that. You tell me there's laser tag involved, I'm going to consider it a lot more.
There's been half jokes. I'm half joking when I say it, but I brought up the thought of like, let's go on a cruise. Let's do like a Laserforce tournament scene 7-day cruise, and preferably one that has like laser tag, although I don't know if that's a thing cruise ships have.
It should. They should.
Some of them do, actually. Just not Laserforce.
I mean, if we gotta play some other lesser system, so be it. But I don't know. I've got a couple of photon packs I can bring. We'll just run around the boat. It'd be so sweet.
No, you're right. Laser tag is this core element, and I asked the question just for the sake of asking the question, but I think more often than not, I've been guilty of the opposite problem. I show up for the tag and ignore the community aspect of it. And I think there are definitely people out there that like tag is just that fun, that addictive, especially as people get really good and they love that increased level of competition. They love pushing themselves, and the titles and the competitiveness. It definitely gets to people in a way that might sometimes alter the spirit of friendship that can sometimes surround Laserforce tournaments or the community groups outside of tag. So it's a strange balance, because you do got to give people competitive laser tag, but also, like you say, community and catharsis keeps people coming back and not being, because like every tournament there's like a few people who are really satisfied with the outcome of the tournament and many who are not satisfied with the outcome. What keeps them coming back,
I reckon it's the people.
Yeah.
The people. Can I ask you something though? Like, has that thought process for you changed, like the social aspect? Has that changed for you since Auckland?
Since
and
Auckland.
It's okay if it hasn't. Yeah, since the Auckland Nats, like, do you now? Because I like the feedback I got from after Auckland Internationals. We went on. A big group of us went on the trip after, and it was incredible. It was an awesome trip.
Magical.
But as somebody who may not like have really thought so much about the social aspects prior to that particular tournament, do you think that's changed for you, or is it still kind of the same? Like your main focus is tag.
Well, I think it's changed over my whole career, and with maturity, I suppose. It's become more about the friendship, and in Auckland, that was definitely like the peak of all the tournaments in terms of community and the catharsis. Because I'm actually carrying the majority of my memories back were about things outside of the arena, not so much in the arena. But I'd say early on, like 2015, when y'all came out, I only cared about proving myself in tag. And that slowly changed as I built relationships.
Yeah, right on. I was curious because, it's, I don't know, there's been a few key moments for me personally over, the course of my playing when I've attended tournaments where, I'm like, oh, actually, I love these people. Like, I don't care what we do, I want to go see them. But, yeah, right on.
Well, without being, like, too flippant about it, like, I don't necessarily know that the two are mutually exclusive, that you can't build strong relationships but also have a dedication to honing your craft and to winning. But
for sure,
in all seriousness, it's true. Look, winning has a price, and not everybody wants to pay that price, because the more competitive things get, the better people are as a whole, the more work it is to put into winning. Are you willing to actually take the time to meet every week, to stick to a rigorous practice schedule, to have meeting times outside of tag where it really is, you are talking about things in a serious way, and it's more than just the casual mess around talk about the night at Denny's, but like actually doing planning and strategy and that kind of stuff, getting yourself in the right headspace, maybe athletic training, getting in shape. Maybe the price is you don't eat some of your favorite foods for a few months because you're trying to shave off a few pounds to try to be in more fighting shape. Maybe it's that I think it's this way in any kind of competitive situation or anything that someone's really serious about. You only have so many hours in a day. And do you sometimes, I don't want to say neglect, but do you sometimes have to set aside temporarily other relationships in your life to really focus on that? Sometimes you do. And I know not everybody has those same priorities, and not everybody has the priority of winning. For some people, it really is just the social aspect of the tag tournaments. And you do want to be accommodating of those folks, but I think it is good that we have a place, we have an environment where there are people who are willing to say that, yes, I want to be as good at this as one can possibly be, and I want to prove myself against other people. But you look at professional sports leagues anywhere, they are fraternities and sororities of people who are elite at their craft, who are going to go out and compete hard against each other, and maybe even they get in some spats and stuff. But like when you get away from that, there's a mutual recognition that, hey, we're after the same goal. We've had the same experiences. We know the sacrifices that have to be made in order to accomplish this. And I think there is a certain kind of camaraderie that is forged in that kind of competitive environment as well that isn't always something that's born out of just social interaction. So that's why I think that maybe both kind of are important there.
Oh, definitely.
That was really well said.
Yeah, shockingly, the actual professor knows
something
how
possessed
to,
me, man. I don't know what to tell you.
knows how to make a point in an eloquent fashion. But that also kind of gets down to within when you're planning a tournament. It's like it's very much a know your audience and the type of tournament that you're planning. If you're planning for a nationals, well, that audience is generally more geared to, all right, we're trying to push for higher end, more elite games, and so the tournament is going to reflect that. And that actually makes having the social stuff to give the catharsis after, like, it actually makes that stuff like more important in that context, because the actual overall stress level is so much higher in that type of event. For something like the random draw that was just passed, maybe it's not so important that you have specific social events planned, more just the knowledge of, okay, yeah, this is a lower stress tournament, therefore, yeah, we're gonna go and have some meals together afterward. We're maybe gonna go to Dave and Buster's and blow off some steam later, but we're not necessarily going to say, oh, hey, we're gonna make a 3-day run down to Rotorua and Taupo to go on the luge and show off the country after a week worth of high intensity games.
Pulling that use nowhere. 2023 as an example, not even so much of the after trip, which was absolutely magical, like we talked about, but kind of midweek of getting that reorientation. Because I have a distinct memory of the second day going into the second night of the tournament. There was kind of like a little bit of a bad air that was developing. And it even happened, it like kind of carried over in the evening of people deciding where they want to go to dinner. And it was, there was a little bit of even in my own head of just like, don't talk to me right now. I don't want to talk to you right now. I don't want to deal with you right now. That was going on. But the third day, one is that we talked about that and processed a little bit, but most importantly, at the end of that day, we all went out to dinner. We went out to that steakhouse, largely at Rusty's behest and Rusty's planning. And that, I feel like the day itself had changed the tone of the event, but that really solidified it. And that really changed the tone of the event and brought much more of still a competitive spirit, because it was a highly competitive tournament, but it did bring back a kind of more mellow, we're all in this because we're friends, we're having this common experience, and even though we're competing against each other, we're also having just a great time hanging out, and we all have the same goal of mutual fun. So I think that kind of thing is really important, and I would say the same about the big lunch that we had in 2018 in Brisbane. I'd say that one was maybe I mean, it was a competitive tournament, but like the outcome was less in doubt, I would say, because obviously Brisbane was going to smash everybody. But in any case, right, you have a little bit of that kind of just a little bit of a relaxation of catharsis.
Yeah.
That's going to be our word for the night. Instead of the human effect, it's going to be catharsis tonight.
Yeah. I think like from an organizational point of view, you need goals and expectations. So you need to set some specific goals around, okay, what do we want from this tournament? Is it a Nats? Cool. We want the most competitive teams that we can from the sites that are available. We want highly competitive. We generally want to have a good amount of traveling players coming to compete. Sometimes at the sacrifice of local players. So like setting specific goals around the tournament. If it's a regional tournament, all right, so the goals change. If it's random draw, we want the outcome to be. We still want quality games, but the randomness element changes the goal. Like there's going to be some kooky shit that happens, and that's where the expectations come into view. So if you set expectations with the people that are attending the tournament, then nobody turns up to a tournament blindsided by anything. So if you've got clear expectations and clear goals from what you want as a tournament director, and then what the players should expect to happen, I think all of that goes a long way to making sure that there's no there's less conflict and more enjoyment out of an event.
And the whole idea of quality games is also going to be a little bit different at a Nats versus like a random draw, because
for sure.
At a Nats, quality games mean that the games are fairly played, they're well refereed, and everything like works in an appropriate manner. But
not outcome.
You don't care about whether or not the games are balanced, or
That's
one
right.
team is better than another, or whether one team learned something. Nah, you're there to win. And if you get eliminated in 5 minutes, sad day for you. That is your fault for showing up and getting run over.
But again, that's expectations, right?
Yeah, like, but at an event like a random draw where people are showing up, especially at an event where people are showing up without a team, they have volunteered their time to like go and have this experience. That expectation is, well, I'm going to be placed in a situation where I have a fair chance to win. That means the teams will be relatively balanced. You don't care about team balance at a Nats. If you do it something like a random draw or a duos or a draft tournament or something like that, and that's where I think the onus is a little bit on the organizers to try to ensure that process does meet out some kind of fair expectation for players. Ben, what were you going to say?
So that's the whole thing around, like, as a tournament coordinator, like, knowing what your negotiables and non-negotiables are within the tournament is really, really important. Like, if it's a Nats, well, a non-negotiable is going to be the lack of caring about team balance. We don't care.
In some ways we do. So like, and that's kind of why we, there's been some talk around like the eligibility stuff, but like we're trying to avoid super teams. But if you have a team like the Brisbane A team for a long time, who was a super team in their own right, like tough shit for everyone else.
Sure.
Sorry, I guess I should phrase that a little bit better. It's a we don't care within the bounds of what the eligibility rules are.
Right.
And is there, a discussion that, may need to be had, perhaps sooner rather than later around what the current eligibility rules are, because we are in such a weird state at this point with so many basically sightless players. Sure,
you can just say the California players. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can name us, but that is a big problem. It was never a situation that was envisioned when we wrote the eligibility rules, because eligibility rules came up specifically because everybody had a site. If you didn't have a site, you didn't play, because there was no history of that. But now that you have California players who are regular tournament players without a site, it does kind of run up against what is the purpose of these rules. So on the one hand, it's true, you don't want to undercut any kind of local homegrown talent that comes up. That is how sites grow, and that is what encourages people to actually spend time mentoring other players rather than just getting the same group of people from across the country to get together and play these events. Like, having said that, though, there's only going to be so many people who are willing to fork over a couple $1,000s to make an international flight to go play a laser tag tournament of all that. Like, you have to be kind of a crazy person to do that, and only the kind of the most dedicated hardcore people are going to do that. So sometimes you end up with these kind of odd arrangements of teams, and sometimes they work, but sometimes they honestly don't. I mean, we've had famous examples of quote unquote super teams who have not
failed miserably.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not to say that I want to change the eligibility rules by any stretch of the imagination.
That's for a different show.
For everybody who has a site, I want you to continue to develop your homegrown talent. I want you to continue to mentor players, and I want sites to be able to put up their best 6 at an ATS and say, this is the best that we can put together right now. Let's see how we stack up against the other sites specifically. And I think it's always meant more to people when you have come up together as a site, when you're playing together week in and week out. Even that 2023 team I was on, even though we were made up of people from 3 different sites, it felt like we were a site because of the way that we approached the practice back, because we were basically talking every week, and we were playing once a month, once every other month in the run up to that tournament. So it felt much more like it would be growing from a site. But that, I think, is really important. And I mean, I would, I guess, kick the question back to you, Luke. You're the person who most recently won with a homegrown arrangement of talent. Like, how much more satisfying is that versus just being on a super team?
Yeah, it's it felt so many things. It felt amazing. It was very stressful. It was relieving. And this is gonna rabbit trail into some other stuff, honestly, because something I wanted to bring up was contrasting Nats from 23 versus Nats from 24, which, from what I understand, I would say they had very different feels, but I came from very different perspectives on both tournaments. But I'm glad that before we get into that, we're kind of differentiating the goals and expectations from Nats versus other tournaments. Right now, what you guys are saying is like Nats is about best sites for each team. Best teams for every site. Fully competitive matches, no attempt at making them even matches, just whatever, as long as they're fair matches, fairly reffed. And you want to prioritize traveling players. So that's kind of the vibe we're going for in Nats.
Yeah,
I think in a nutshell, yeah.
Whereas many of these other ones, just real quick, like random draw, duos, trios, draft, we're looking more at fair chances to win, allowing opportunities for training of newer players, etc.
And the other thing, like with those other types of tournaments, like those become tournaments as well, where like if you can't get a full 6 people from your site, in quotes, we'll use Sacramento as as an example, since Sacramento doesn't have a site anymore, but there's still more than 6 Sacramento players that are regularly attending tourneys. But if there's a like this random draw just gone, I don't think there were 6 Sacramento players total.
There were.
There were. Oh well. Okay, fine. Fuck you.
I had 5 in my car just by myself.
Okay. But had there not been 6 Sacramento players able to go for that type of tournament, it wouldn't have mattered because of the nature of the tournament. So having these smaller type tournaments, these random draws, these duos, these trios, are also opportunities for not necessarily being able to get a full 6, a full team of 6 together, but you can still go and play some competitive tag.
Yep.
Well, so, and even from a smaller, what are they? The zoomed in view, whatever that
Micro.
corporate terminology is.
Micro versus macro.
Yeah. So from a micro view,
From the 100-foot view. We're not looking at 30,000 feet. We're down. We're down to the 100-foot view. It's fine.
I don't know. I'm not into feet. So I think if you do if you play with the format like trios or duos or whatever, those kind of tournaments as well give you the ability to run local tournaments in a different kind of way. So the idea of our triple threat tournament was born out of, okay, I think we had 21 players or 18 players or something. Obviously that's nowhere near enough to run a traditional 6v6 Space Marines tournament. But if you break it down into teams of 2 or teams of 3, then suddenly you actually have a lot of variation you can play with. You're getting your players are getting the ability to play with players they don't normally get to play with, which I think is also a really good goal in some of those smaller tournaments, like the non-Nats tournaments. Is okay, I get the opportunity to play with people I don't normally get to play with. You still get high quality games, and when you break down into smaller teams, suddenly you've gone to we've got 6 teams competing in this tournament out of teams of 3, but still it's it is something a little more special than just a regular members night or whatever. We ran ours over 3 days over 3 different sites, and it was teams of 3, hence the triple threat. It kind of worked out perfectly. Awesome format. Really, really, really fun format. Way better than duos.
Rolls up sleeves.
Yeah.
We just didn't have enough arenas over here in the U.S. to go to 3 different arenas.
Soft.
I can go wherever I want.
But it was really, really, really cool. It's 4 reallys. Really cool. It was a novel way of doing something that we hadn't done before.
Yeah. It was kind of really cool. I wish I could have tried it.
Yeah. Me too.
oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that, man.
Stupid.
Well, I mean, we might as well talk about that right now. Is that, Luke, you're one of the primary organizers of the Duos event. Steve, you're one of the primary organizers of the Triple Threat event. I think both of those were very well received. I certainly had a great time at the Duos tournament. We talked a little bit about if we did an event like that again, what we might do differently going forward. But I think the concept of it is absolutely great for all the reasons you guys mentioned. You don't need to have a full team of 6 come out from your site. You can basically treat it as a local event in which you're inviting some people from the outside, but if not that many come, it's okay because you're still doing something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But what I guess was the thinking behind the organization of each of those, and what would you guys do differently the next time around?
We I'm gonna start. I'm gonna jump ahead of you, Luke. We actually ran well, I've got both. So we ran 2 triple threats, and the first, they were wildly different. the first one was basically a local tournament. Like it was just like our local site, and it was what it was. The second one we ran, we had players from Brisbane turn up, and actually, I think did Marcus come to that?
Probably. Marcus was at pretty much every event in about a 5-year span until he had a new job, I think.
I think he had talked about it, and I was like, "Don't come to this one. Come to the." I can't remember because I got COVID like just before the tournament, so I didn't get to play. Oh, dude, this is fucking terrible. But like, I organized this tournament and I wasn't able to play in it, which is a real shame. But there was a couple. There was like the second one was not good. And I think the reason for that is because the expectations weren't made. The expectations and the goals weren't clear. So the expectations we set with players weren't clear. So, players turned up and then they basically had an idea of what the tournament was going to be, and it wasn't that. It turned into something else. There was also a bunch of like baggage that apparently the Australians managed to pack. They paid for extra baggage, which they brought with them and dumped on our doorstep, which was a shame. And we had our own fair share of baggage that we tried to unload onto them. So there was personality conflicts there that also didn't help. But I think if you're clear with your expectations, like we were with the first one that we ran, it goes a lot smoother. People have a better time. They understand, hey, this is casual. Like, to answer your question from earlier, DK, like the reason we wanted to run it was because there's a long-standing tradition in America where you guys have East Coast and West Coast tournaments, and we don't really have a similar thing in Australasia. So the thinking was, well, why don't we do some cool kind of like trans-Tasman tournament, or cool local tournament we have here, and if people want to travel to it, then so be it. That was kind of our answer to ECT or WCT, but because of personnel, like we didn't have 30 people show up. It was a way that we could kind of still have lots of teams compete. So that was kind of the thought process.
Yeah, very nice. Again, it's a great concept, such a great concept that straight up I plagiarized you, and we have this, we have this little banter. But I think you and I are absolutely coming from the same place with the duos and triples. We are cut from the exact same cloth here. I just took it and I changed the goals and expectations a little bit. My thought was, my goal was to create as many evenly matched games as possible, utilizing the MVP system. And the only I think it could be done exactly the same way with trios as well, honestly. I was just trying to... The only thing I don't like about trios is that I worry that some players will get put on one hit the whole time or resupply, while other players would play 3-hit every game. I wanted a format where every player could be given an opportunity to play 3-hit.
Well, we had... So on that, our first one that we ran, we'd set expectations, and we actually had it built into the rules that you had to play everything. Cool. Yeah.
I didn't know.
So because I was concerned about the same thing. I was like, well, we don't want like the newer players just having to play. And actually, everyone managed to get it right except me. I didn't play medic, I don't think, in one of the days, and we'd made some rules around it, and you got docked points, and I think because of that mistake, we got docked points. We went from first place to third place, and it was funny. It was really, really, well, some of us found it funny. So
yeah, but the person who didn't find it funny isn't in the community anymore. So
exactly right. Yeah, it's kind of a blessing. But yeah, that, to your point, that's kind of, we had the same thought.
Yeah,
and that's an interesting thing you can do with those formats too, is you can make balanced games even in cases where you might have a duo or trio who's super stacked. Because I look at like the duos event, we definitely had some real heavy hitter duos I mean, all the people who finished at the top of the tournament, really like the top 5 pairings, I think, were just absolutely elite players. Then you had a few other duos who was maybe like an experienced player trying to help a newer player. And then you had some players who maybe didn't have an easy time finding someone else, but hey, they can get put together with another player very easily because it's a duos event. But everybody has a chance, because if you're in one of the weaker duos, you'll probably get put with some of the stronger duos more often. And if you're on one of the stronger duos, like, have at it, but you better have confidence in your skills, because you're going to be playing against other people who are close to your skill level. And you're still going to end up with some mismatches here or there, but I think that is one of the strengths of those formats, is that you can kind of do some balancing in game in the way the schedule shakes out once you actually know who's attending, without having to actually put those strictures on team construction itself. But you could also, you could have a point cap or something like that to try to even out your pairings or your trios if you wanted.
Yeah. Honestly,
this is I was gonna say, this is one of those things where a good idea is a good idea even if you didn't come up with it.
Absolutely. Honestly, you could get the full roster of players coming and decide if it's going to be duos or trios based on how the numbers break down. I don't think there's really much difference.
As long as you set proper expectations and people, the cool thing about it is it's a cool format regardless, right? Like, it's something new, it's something we don't do all the time. So I think players are like, oh yeah, we could think of the people we kind of pair up with.
Something just occurred to me while you two were talking about that too, because I would think that, if we were doing trios, I would want there to be some kind of stricture that's on there that, you have to play everything. If you're on the rotation that's heavy ammo medic, you have to play heavy ammo and medic in some order at some point in your game.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I actually did like about duos is you could decide if it's like, well, look, my partner is a much better heavy than I am, so we're going to have them play the heavy games and I'll play the commander games, and maybe you vary that up for resupply. So you can kind of think about that when you're with your duos partner, because it's just you and the other person. You only need to come to an agreement between the two of you, rather than among all 3 people and somebody be like, well, I don't want to play medic every single game, yada, 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 when you're doing that thing. So that's just a small interesting difference I would see between those events, is that I would suggest like a forced rotation in trios, the way that I probably wouldn't in a duos, because it's like, you and your partner, whatever you decide. If it's better one combo, then hey, have at it.
Yeah, it was just about like making sure everyone got to play everything. Yeah. And
and one of the ways in which we ran one of the leagues, and we even ran an event like this in St. George a few years ago, was where we did have full teams of 6, and you were going to play every other team 3 times, or 3 matches. You're going to play them a total of 6 times. And in those 6 games, you had to have everybody on your team play all 6 positions. It is a lot of bookkeeping that's required.
It is. But
I really do think that is a great format for really thinking about competitive situations and really organizing and gelling as a team to figure out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how do you respond to what another team does. I really love the kind of chess match element of that. But again, like I said, it's a lot of bookkeeping. That's maybe more thinking than a lot of people want to do. Some people really relish that kind of strategic thing. Other people are just like, I just want to go play some fucking games, man.
I just actually remembered, and this is probably why you had the thought you did, Luke. But the second triple threat tournament we ran, it was co-hosted myself and one other player. We were kind of co-hosts, and because I got knocked out with COVID, there was a miscommunication at some point, and one of the things that got changed or wasn't enforced was the everyone has to play everything rule, and that was probably the main difference between the two that we ran. Was the forced rotation in quotation marks was better because that was the expectation, whereas in the second one, I think there was a case where some players just took commander every time they were in there. They play 3-hit the entire tournament, and their teammates were like,
Rusty. Cool. You can just say who it was. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, Rusty's not going to play 3-hit. Come on, guys.
And I talked to him. It was Rusty. And I talked to him about it after. His thought process was, oh, well, I'll play 3-hit the full first day. We'll win all those games, and then we'll share it around the rest of the time. And, again, I wasn't there because I was sick, but it didn't really go down too well. And so, that was a big difference, actually, now that I remember. And it's probably, when people talked about it after, because that one had a bigger impact on the scene as a whole, because we had international players come to it. Mm-hmm. I think that was probably why the reaction to it was, oh, well, that format was a bit average. It's like, well, that wasn't the original intention, and running it both ways, the force rotation was way better. It was awesome, actually. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, can I ask you something, Steve-O? So DK said a few minutes ago, how was the tournament and what would you do differently next time? Both these formats have had 1 or 2 test runs, of course. So how would you run a high quality triple threat?
I would do it the same as the way the format was intended. So the first way we ran it, and there was some. We had in the initial inception of the idea, there was a full kind of write out of how the tournament runs, and it reads more complicated than it actually was. But having people understand. Ooh, shit! That's my alarm.
Did you win the Legos?
Yeah. I'll go back to your quit. No. I think that was the first way we ran it. We hit it out of the park. I think it went really well, and it was interesting that I was the one who didn't adhere to the rules, and as a result, my team didn't win, which we were, for the most part, okay with. But finding a better way to kind of track that is probably a good thing to implement. But aside from that, just the way we ran it the first time around was awesome, and then the second time it was less awesome.
Yep. Never have a relationship that isn't legally enforceable with a contract is, I think, the bottom line here.
Holla, we want prenups. Yeah.
Yeah. So setting expectations, like you said, if the expectation is, and it's written into the rules, that you are going to have to play all the positions and you have to rotate it through it with your team, then everybody will be on board for that. If the rule is you abide by what the little dice in the cup say, no matter how many times in a row you roll heavy when you don't want to play it. So everybody's got the same box, so it happens. Everybody has the same set of expectations, and it's gonna work out better that way.
And in all those cases, for the love of God, unless you have a full unanimous, every player at the tournament says, yeah, okay, we're cool with changing it. This is something you've probably set weeks and months in advance of this.
Yeah, before people buy their airfare, before they commit several $100s to coming to an event, let them know what they're gonna do.
Do not, it as a generalized statement. Do not make changes to the formatting after you have people committing to travel to do it.
Even with a vote, man. I don't even bring it up as a possibility.
Well, and that's and kind of the secondary thing there is know what your negotiables and non-negotiables are, and a line that I've used for years, and I know that Tucker has started using it as well. Tournament coordinating is a benevolent dictatorship. Mm-hmm. You have here are the things that we're going to be doing. Now, again, a good idea is a good idea even if you didn't come up with it, and if it comes up at the right times, oh, okay, yeah, we can make that change because that actually makes sense. Mm. That goes back to the take help where it's given. The biggest mistake that I made, way back in the day, was not taking help from other people when it was offered.
You got to delegate.
It took me until the 2002, 2003, 2004 with DK to be okay, yeah, here, let me delegate you some of these things so that I'm not doing everything, and things got better because of it. So yeah, don't make the mistake if you're doing the organizing, thinking that you have to do everything yourself, especially now where the where we keep kind of upping the ante as far as the multimedia experience within the tournaments. So it's like obviously last year's Nats is one of the ultimate examples of this.
It's all right.
It's all right. I mean, obviously we've got half of this current podcast that was heavily involved with all the multimedia stuff, and it was fucking amazing. Like,
it was crazy.
Yeah,
he's leaving me hanging. Here we go.
No, I got you. I got you.
We got you, Luke. Like Luke. I mean, all the player videos that you did, Steve-O, you and Josh doing the commentating, and then all the other behind the scenes stuff that was having to happen at the site so that all of that could happen. Like, there was a lot of shit going on.
Oh, dude.
And
it's crazy.
And
I'm honestly in awe of you guys.
Yeah, and
I felt like I was bugging the shit out of Luke, just being like, "Hey, bro, have you got this?" Yeah, dude, I've got a life. All right, like I'll get to it when I get to it.
I'm trying to win a goddamn tournament here.
Yeah, / work my actual job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the point of that being that, like, yeah, you do have to delegate things to people. The tournament will, as a generalized statement, the tournament will be better if you are able to delegate things to people to do other pieces, so that you are not trying to do everything. Really, as a tournament coordinator, you are a project manager. That is literally what you are doing. You are running a project. You are making sure that, like, things are happening when they are supposed to happen, in whatever fashion they're supposed to happen. So yeah, as we continue to make everything that goes along with a full Nats, because we're back to full Nats right now, as we're continuing to do things to make that more and more complicated, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just we're trying to improve the experience for people that aren't able to go, so that people watching can go, oh, this is a thing, and this is really fucking cool. And
it was a lot of work that obviously went into it, and it was amazing to see the project you guys came up with. For me, that I just always wanted to double check with you guys. I'm like, that was worth it to you, right? Because I know how much work that is. And early on, when you're talking about the project, about all the stuff that needed to get done, like I very honestly was just like, I don't think I have the expertise to do a lot of this media stuff, number one. And number two, that's going to be too big of a distraction for me when I'm going to an event to play. So hats off to you. Absolutely. I have such admiration for you guys to do that, but I don't necessarily think that is like the baseline expectation for what is needed to host a tournament. If you want to do that, great. But that was way, way, way above and beyond anything that we'd ever experienced.
Yeah, again, the point I'm making there is that, like, if you're doing a tournament that is going that route, you have to delegate. It's not even a question. Like, you have to delegate. And even if you're in a smaller tournament, being able to delegate things out will make not only your life easier, but it will probably improve the overall product, because if you have multiple people kind of looking at the same thing, that's where the ideas start getting kicked around. It's like, and then it gets back to, oh, it's a good idea even if you didn't come up with it. Which, again, I've definitely in earlier years, I was 100% guilty of not listening to ideas that came from other people because I didn't like them.
Yep.
And I didn't care it was a good idea. I was
they were idiots.
No, I'm not doing that because. So at the time, that was 100% my view. As I've gotten older, I realize that I am the idiot, and
everyone else is also an idiot.
As you get older, you realize we're all idiots, and we're just trying to do our best.
Correct, 100%. But yeah, again, it's a good idea, even if you didn't come up with it, even if you don't like the person who came up with it. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. Do the thing. Delegate the things.
You're hitting on something really important for only a few people over the next few years, and it is the coordinator needs to know what they're doing and ask for help and get wisdom from people who have done it before, because a bad tournament coordinator can ruin the entire event.
For sure.
Yeah.
Whatever
I would say getting like being open to feedback is massive, because
100%.
Not only is it, hey, like that person came up with a good idea, sweet, let's implement that, but there's also, that person who has been around for a while has said that this is probably not a good idea, maybe I should rethink that idea. Like and sorry to throw the boys under the bus, but like we in Sacramento 2017 we had the awards dinner in a park, and we had a barbecue, and it was really awesome, and actually like another example of great social interaction with the scene. The boys in Brisbane were like, hey, that was really fun, let's do it again. The problem is Brisbane is dark by 6
It was a winter
p.m.
there.
And it doesn't it doesn't translate. Like we probably should have done something better. Now it's hilarious to talk about, but I think if you go to other people and ask them for their feedback on kind of your overall, be confident in your decisions, but like also take on the advice of people who've done it before. Like I'm far too lazy not to delegate shit. So for Orcon, I lent on both of these guys and also Night Owl when it came to scheduling's the big one. And there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel with scheduling, because there's ways that it works. Yep. And you can't really do much to improve on it. Unless maybe, we get to a point where we've got 20 teams coming, and then maybe you relook at how those are done. But for the most part, this has been gone for over 20 years. The
biggest innovation, I think, honestly, kind of came in, I want to say it was right around 2014. Maybe it was that Brisbane Nats. And I want to say this was largely the behest of tragedy. I apologize if it was somebody else who came up with this idea of doing the rotation of doing play ref sit, of having 6 teams in a block, and you play a game, you immediately go ref, and then you have your sit out after that. Mm-hmm. That has sped things up and improved our timetable so much versus when we were insistent about doing all matches back to back. It has become much more efficient doing it that way. And it works cleanest with 6 teams, but it can work well if you have more teams that you have to do. But as long as you have that kind of basic block schedule where it's like you're just rotating the game as quickly as possible, it works out a lot better than being like, okay, 2 teams go in, they come out, the refs have their discussion, you're waiting. Okay, now they're done. Now the same 2 teams go back in. That takes way too long. So we've sped up the process a lot. And that was, only about 10 years ago out of 25 years, whatever, we've been organizing tournaments. So sometimes new ideas do come along. You do want to be open to those when they happen, because that was an innovation the last 10 years. Ref suits were an innovation the last 10 years. 0-point penalties were an innovation of really the last 5 or 6 years. And all of those have so drastically improved just the experience of players and the experience of being at the tournament. Because I played plenty of tournaments back in the day where what I dreaded most was post-game penalty discussions that would drag on for 20, 30,
it was so
40
brutal.
minutes. It was honestly, I can't believe that people kept coming back after. Experiences. I'm glad that we weathered that storm. We have a better system now, but stuff got really bogged down, and things have gotten just so much better from the voices of experience on this podcast. I can tell you that as bad as what
you came up with the 0 points, right? 0 points.
No, that was also a Brisbane innovation. I don't know, but I think it was a joint effort. I don't know if it was tragedy specifically. And I honestly was skeptical of it when we first started introducing it to our comps, but it is improved things so much. I think some of that does go along, again, like you said, about setting expectations and developing a culture where people are not really looking to like milk infractions as part of the game, because there was a time period, I would say, in maybe like the kind of early to mid 2000s, where part of the art of it was also like baiting penalties out of the other team and seeing what you could get away with. And like it's very like... it's very antithetical to the way that I just in general approach competition. Like, I'm all for competition, trying as hard as you can to win, but part of playing to win is playing within the rules. There is ultimately no satisfaction that comes from cheating or technicalities. Those are very hollow things.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a few things I wrote down just kind of over the last like few minutes. Like, viewer experience, we talked about the stream is an important part of a tournament. Like, I don't know if it's the most important thing for the people there, but it certainly has built up recently. We've gotten more technology. Cameras are becoming more and more commonplace. People are constantly watching the stream. At least like 10 people at any given moment seem to be watching the streams and trying to participate. People who can't come, like, that's it. I can say, as someone who just wasn't able to come to Random Draw, I was glued to my screen every single time I had free time, like all week. I wanted to be part of the experience through that. Good tournament coordination is really important. Being efficient with time. We've definitely had times where, even with the play ref sit, like, people get annoyed when one team isn't there to come in, and we have to deal with that. And a sportsman-like culture. I'm very proud to say I voted yes on the 0-point penalty when it was introduced in Detroit 2019, because I had many experiences where if I penalized somebody, I would get screamed at, and then the penalty would get reversed. And now I got all these new players that I'm talking to, and they're afraid to penalize the upper players in Loveland. And I'm like, no, peg them. Who cares? If they yell at you, I'll penalize them a second time.
Yeah. I think, like, and it's interesting you say that like the new school, like the newer players, like, have that kind of adversity to it, because I think, like, it was initially sold like like, it's not a biggie. Like, if you get penalized, it's gonna maybe like, you'd rather just disrupt the flow. So I'm a little distracted. There's a very racist money box that is being sold on this auction site, and it's gone for like over $100, and I cannot believe it. Stupid attention. But like, but they've still got that kind of reservation as to, like, to penalize. To penalize people, where like 0-point penalties were supposed to take a lot of that away, like give some empowerment to the refs to start making these calls, because ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, they don't mean as much as like getting penalized 1,000 points for something. And so back in the day, people were less willing, I guess, or like, if something was a 50-50 call, they're like, I mean, it could have been, but I'm not sure. Now it's like, it should be that, I wasn't, like, I'm pretty sure, so it's worth penalizing, because the worst case, like, it breaks their flow. Oh well, like, tough shit. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
No, I brought you on the podcast so we could hear about the money box. This is what the people want.
They're like, how racist was this money box?
I'm gonna guess pretty racist.
This is how you run high quality tournaments.
Reffing is a good thing to stick on, though, because I think that developing players as refs is also an important thing that you can develop in your local leagues, social nights, smaller events, all those kinds of things, because it happens every tournament, right? We run into the paradoxical ref situations where the refs are simultaneously overzealous and they don't pay attention to anything, depending on which player you are and what did or didn't get called at any given time. But it is much nicer not to have, like, penalties be the defining element of, like, who wins or loses a game. Because, man, when I've seen games or matches that have been flipped on penalties, it gets heated in there.
That was part of the reason 2003 was so like brutal, was because of ref, because of penalties. It was crazy. Anyway,
Yeah, and then they started vetoing all the refs, so it's like there's nobody to call these fictitious penalties.
They had three referees reffing the finals.
Yeah, it's
in,
ridiculous.
in Oakley's maze, which that's never gonna work.
Never ever. Silly.
Bottom line is just, respect the refs, but if you are a ref, give the same respect to the players that you want to receive as well. Like, pay attention, move about, shift your focus, shift your attention when people are coming in, because that's what we're talking about. Like at a Nats level, when we say, "Is the game fair?" That's what we're talking about. Like, are the referees actually paying attention, doing their jobs? And no referee is going to catch 100% of the things 100% of the time, but you're trying as best you can, and not just looking at the floor, or God forbid, looking at your phone. That kind of
thing. That's drives me crazy, seeing referees with a phone.
Well, and the bottom line is, as a referee, sometimes if you actually watch the flow of the game, you might actually learn something about how other people play.
Don't tell me what
even
to
something
do.
that you can use against them in some subsequent match and say, this player always does this one certain thing when they do it in this other place. I bet I can take advantage of that. So,
you can become a better player with this one weird trick.
Yeah. So even from a purely selfish perspective, you still have a lot of incentive as a ref to pay attention to what's going on in the game.
Sure.
Like, it's not going to hurt you. Come on.
All right.
Ooh, pocket knife.
30 minutes ago, DK asked me if I were running duos again, is there anything I would change?
I'm sorry, did we not let you talk enough?
A perfectly natural segue.
And I have not let it go.
Let me tell you something about treat. No.
Oh man. And then I want to, and then it's all about me. So then we'll go to the next topic that I want. But the thing I added on with duos, just to kind of continue to talk about formats, is, and you could do this with trios. You could, like, it's the MVP ranking, taking MVP, which everybody loves and everybody agrees with, to rank players.
Totally uncontroversial subject.
Yes. And try to make matches as even as possible by pairing people up against people with similar MVP scores in the same positions. So 3 hits are always matched up against 3 hits of similar MVP, etc. Trying to make even matchups. I would keep that. I would just try to do less things. I think I overcomplicated it, and I also made people like play ref play sit play ref play. Like, there was a lot of that going on. So it was definitely a giant experiment with a lot of flaws, but I would be I think it was ultimately like, it should be tried again someday, and I have a lot of things I would simplify.
Yeah.
Sounds like a less good format of something else.
Interesting.
Well, to defend duos here for a moment against the onslaught of Guy Next Door's haranguing here, it does make those rotations, I think, a little bit cleaner, because you have very well-defined roles of 3-hit, scout, resupply. For trios, I know, like, you have the offense-defense type of thing, but respectfully, I think that is in some ways kind of the old meta of suggesting that the heavy ammo and medic are sort of the defensive side, and
so we didn't purposely
just called you old.
Refer to it as that's like the racist money box, call it. That we actually, I think we changed the vernacular around it. So we started with offense and defense because it was the easy way to refer to, the commander and the scouts and
classically that was true.
Yeah, but we actually changed the vernacular around it because people were like, well, so does that mean that if I'm the heavy, I have to play, defensively the whole time? Like, no, you still play Space Marines like you play it. We could have I think we changed it to the offense and the back line or something. We changed the vernacular roots just to make sure that people were like, no, you still play Space Marines. You still play Space Marines. You you know, like, I don't know, call it anything you want. Give it any title.
Yeah.
We changed it from homeless to unhoused, thus solving the problem forever.
We call it offense and then the other ones. That's
Okay.
that's how we
There you
call
go.
it. Yeah,
And the nerds.
Well,
Yeah, and the jerks.
yeah, and with, I mean, Luke, you said like, oh, I made some mistakes with duos and how this was run. Again, to you know, defend, even though I wasn't at that tournament.
They're like coming after duos.
It's
so defensive.
it's more a case of like, because it was something new. Like, okay, well, now we know things. Now we know how not to do certain things for that format of tournament. Anytime there's any sort of, you know, new, you know, format or whatever that people try to run, there's always going to be, you know, kinks and bugs that have to be worked out in the process. We're never going to get it 100% right the first time we do a new format.
I did, but whatever.
You need to shut the fuck up and go back to looking at your racist
Only
money
we
box.
could all be Steve-O.
If only we could all be Steve-O.
Yeah, finally.
So, yeah, him and his amazing hair. I'm jealous. So the fact, you know, the fact that there were things that were like, oh, I would do, you know, X, Y, and Z differently. That's fine. Like, that's you know, for anybody going forward who is looking to, you know, pick up the tournament coordinator mantle and, you know, do a thing, and wants to try something new.
Do it.
I mean, yeah. The reality is that the first time that we do a new format, it's not gonna be perfect. That's fine. We'll figure it out and iterate on it. If you're a tournament coordinator that's doing a format that has been run before, well, you've got an amazing amount of resources that are willing to, you know, step up and like, hey, you know, have you tried this, and this, and help you with that process. Like, I am ecstatic that there are more people running tournaments now, because quite honestly, it got really fucking irritating basically being, you know, like one of the only people who was doing it for such an extended period of time.
Well, that swings both ways, though.
Yeah.
So like, if you're, and you know, like you said it before, there was ways that you would want to run stuff, and you had issues delegating. I think that's a good lesson for people who do have the issue of like not necessarily needing to be the one in control. Is when you do that kind of stuff, then you can stifle the growth of other people coming in and doing that stuff, right?
100%. And I will 100% acknowledge that me having control issues definitely probably negatively impacted the tournament scene at different points over the course of me running things. Like there
it's
were
also
certain
just bigger now.
Yeah.
That too, but there were certainly points, you know, during the, you know, 19 years that I was more directly involved with things where, you know, I can kind of look back now and go, maybe if I hadn't, you know, been trying to hold it so tightly at various points, then maybe we could have had some other people doing the full tournament coordinator roles, and maybe that would have helped other things. So
and the bottom line is, the more people you have who are willing to organize a tournament, the more tournaments we're going to have. If tournaments were entirely contingent on when is Stan available to organize a tournament, we wouldn't have as many, because he's just not as available as he once was.
Selfish.
But if we have, you know, at least one person at every site who's willing to say, hey, like, I need some help, but I'm willing to step up and do this thing, it's a lot more likely the thing is going to happen.
For sure.
Looks like Fan learned
just like on the subject of duos. I think I may have said this to you already privately, Luke, but if I haven't said it on the air, one thing I might consider looking at for a format like that is bringing in a format that Night Owl had come up with for an individual SM5 comp, where basically people were thrown under random teams, But at the end of every game, the entire team's score was applied to that player. So your team score transferred with you for every game that you played. So the more games you won, the better you did, the higher overall score for the tournament was going to be. And they'll start varying up as you start playing with more and more people. So that was the only difference I would say, is that I think the MVP system is good for splitting teams, or ranking people and trying to balance out who's going to be on each side. But in terms of like who is accumulating the most points in the tournament, that I would still want to be contingent in some way on winning the games and not just amassing MVP points. Because not to say that that playing well isn't more likely to result in getting higher MVPs, and winning games isn't likely to result in getting higher MVPs. But you do want to avoid situations where people are altering their play to try to milk the statistics and not accomplishing the root goal of the game, which is to win.
You're
that
completely
game.
right.
Yeah, because I can just give you an example from the random draw that we played last week. There were at least 3 or 4 games that we played where I had basically told my team, because we were ahead in a situation, to just stop doing anything and make the other team come to us. We're giving up the chance to earn MVP points that way, but we're winning the game. We don't have to do anything. They have to score points, not us. So it's like that's the ultimate strategy of the game, is to win the game or the match that you're in.
You kind of want to incentivize that to drive the right behavior.
Yeah, exactly. And not just that, but it might cost my team the game, but I could probably still go use these 2 more missiles and get that last nuke.
Well, so one of the things that was thrown up with the triple threat was like, what happens if you're paired with a team and they're ahead of you in the standings, and if they lose, then it's better for you. Like we put in like a point-based system where like you got points for winning and like winning the game, and then you also got points for meeting like whatever targets we put in place for both teams. So for like the offense, it was, I think you got a point if you like killed out the opposition medic or something, or and then as the other guys, you got a point if your medic lasted. And there was it was kind of based around, all right, first and foremost, let's win the game, because that benefits everyone, and then on top of that, there's other stuff that got you points towards the standing. So but yeah, finding ways to drive the right kind of competitive behavior if you're playing with the format of the tournament should be an important thing that you want to do. I think
I agree. These are good points. Something I want to just say about randoms, duos, and trios as a whole is I think that they, as non-Nats tournaments, have evolved to the state of our scene right now. We used to do more East Coast and West Coast like site locks. They seemed, for all intents and purposes, like Nats, but not. So sometimes you would have more leeway or whatever. But we haven't had them recently, and I think it's partially because you need a full team usually. These other formats, random draw, duos, trios, you could just show up by yourself or have a partner or a site of 3 people, and it makes it more accessible for people.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
100%.
the whole, like the original intention with the West Coast and East Coast tournaments, like those were literally intended as kind of like regional national feeders. Like those were intended to be, okay, this is where you can get your full site team experience at a tournament that is obviously more than just a members night where you're playing socially, but it's not the full Nats pressure cooker. But it is inner site, and it is, you're taking teams, and you're probably taking some newer / weaker players, and maybe you're mixing your teams up a little more within your site to try to blood some of these new players into, hey, this is a step on the level to get to a full Nats. So and the intention there obviously worked a lot better when we had more sites open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels hard to pull off now.
Yeah, it was right around 2013, I think. In our arrogance and hubris, we started talking about East Coast and West Coast and the possibility that we might need that as a qualifier event for Nats sometime in the future if it got too big and too unwieldy for us to do. But we have never come up against that problem for a number of reasons. So that kind of rationale for the West Coast, East Coast kind of went out. And then by the late 2010s, I think people were starting to get interested in just doing different formats. They're like, well, look, if Nats is the place where we get the best players at our site together and we try to form site pure teams, then maybe the regional event should be for something else, something different, so people have a chance to intermix more. So maybe the thinking on that has just evolved and changed a little bit. But not having a site and not having players that I can develop, I am all for having as many of these random format events that are not Nats related when we can do them, because it does represent certainly my best chance to play.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, I'm so sorry, but like I'm getting like air coming out of your mic and then nothing in air like that. Do you guys hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
my goodness, that's crazy. All right. So I wanted to.
What's it doing?
Oh, I don't know. It hasn't done that until just now. That's so weird.
Maybe I'm breathing. My mic's like anticipating me like butting in, so it's just like. Huh?
No worries. I'll just ignore it. So, I don't know. We've already gone for about an hour and a half, and I want to make sure we get to something that I think might be a good like boss level of this discussion. So nationals, at least from my experience, maybe I can just share this as someone who's a little newer to the scene, having come in at 2015.
Oh yeah, 10 years. 10 years.
Yeah, 10
you've
years.
Been involved in.
10 years still a long time, man.
Yeah. That is still a pretty fair amount. It's not your fault that you're on a podcast with old people at the moment.
Well, I mean, you guys were in my shoes at one point, and I feel like me and people in my quote unquote laser tag generation across different sites have been having our own discussions and having our own impact on the scene. Obviously, I started my own podcast. Like we have our own say, and you guys have been very encouraging of us coming in and trying to advocate to make the scene better, make changes, bring up new ideas, et cetera, and something that's definitely been a theme that I've heard from many people was just how frankly toxic Nats could be sometimes, how the competitiveness could get out of control, people would be getting yelled at, people for penalizing, for just not being good on their own team, and what you say, DK, it's completely true. Like Nats is the place for people to be competitive, to bring it all out. And there is a certain amount of testosterone that is released when you are just playing like you're in a war zone. I don't think it's fair. And I've gone back and forth on this, but I don't think it's really fair to expect people to be perfectly behaved out of Nats. Like it's going to get a little tense. Now we don't tolerate certain behaviors. Absolutely. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
there's a line somewhere. It's just sometimes it's a little hard to find.
There are multiple lines, and we've had those lines crossed, and we've worked on the boundaries, worked on the rules. Certain people have for protection of others, have been out of the scene, and we've made things better. We're now at a place where it seems like there's a really clear difference between Nats and other tournaments, where there's lots of people who really want to come and have fun, and they much prefer the vibes of, oh, I get to be on random teams, I get to play with people I don't normally get to play with. It's not super try hard. So we've talked about how we can make these non-Nats tournaments really good, and it seems like this last tournament is a good sign of success, like compared to many in the past. Like seems like it was great vibes. As far as
I would say so. I would also just say, like, don't be too down on yourself for just something I've noticed the last couple of podcasts you've done. It seems like you're kind of like down on yourself and thinking that people didn't have a good time at Nats. I think people had a great time at this last Nats. There were some things that were out of your control that I don't think had anything to do with you or had anything to do with any of the Loveland players specifically.
Yep.
That did contribute to maybe some of the things that we wanted to happen at the event not turning out the way that people had hoped. But the competition itself was great, and I don't think that people have ill feelings about the tournament itself. So just don't like be too down on yourself for that. Is all I would say.
Yeah, there were definitely the things that I know for me that kind of made my head cock about nuts. I mean, there's one thing regarding scheduling, but the scheduling conversation about the pod brackets and if it's going to be you know odds evens or 1 to 4 5 to 8, like that discussion had to come as a result of something that happened that was outside of your guys' control.
Yeah.
In terms of the amount of time that we had available to us in order to play and in order to be able to complete the tournament within the allotted time, this compromise had to be made. Now, the specific compromise that was made, you know, that is a totally separate discussion, which I'm not overly fussed about at the moment. The point is, a solution was, you know, what was proposed, and it worked within the time that we had, and we had to go with a solution because something happened that we didn't have control over, or you know, none of us had any sort of control over. So yeah, like that's like that sort of stuff where there are changes where there are essentially last minute changes that are foisted upon a tournament that are outside of control. Sometimes with those, you just kind of have to go, well, we made the best decision we could.
You roll with it.
Based on what was there, we rolled with it. Was it ideal? Maybe not, but you know, we didn't exactly have a whole bunch of different options that we could do. So, yeah.
I think also, as an outside voice, for me, like I don't know if I took any responsibility for it, but I will now. Like, you know, being the mouth hole, the mouthpiece for you know, I don't know, some part of the community. Like, maybe, you know, there was more, like during the commentary, and I tried to make a point of not harping on about it too much because I've made my thoughts on the whole thing very well known during the week, which doesn't help. It doesn't help towards maybe, or sorry, it sets maybe a perception from like people who didn't attend or whatever it is. Like I had voiced my opinion on how it should have been, and it wasn't how it ended up being. So that part of that negativity was like me / commentary talking about it. And I think like I kind of was off the back of the podcast you did with some of the crew prior, or I can't remember when it was that it came out, but I think Sweets had kind of expressed his disdain for how it was kind of working out as well, and that comes down to maybe expectations as well. I don't know, but yeah, like I mean, I shouldn't have probably been as negative about it as I was because I didn't attend. So if you don't attend, generally your opinion doesn't mean shit as to what's happening at the tournament itself.
Well,
yeah.
Goodness, guys, thank you. And maybe y'all don't need to feel so bad either. I don't know. So if maybe I've been sounding more negative and down on it than I've thought, but I would imagine part of that isn't necessarily because of my feelings about how how I personally handled things, but more so like the tournament itself was very stressful in general and took some time for me to recover from.
Sure.
But the truth is I have regrets. And the truth is that there are people who expressed some heavy complaints about the tournament. And so I will say this, what I'm about to say, please just recognize like I'm doing fine. And I recognize that there was a lot out of my control. And to be honest, what I'm about to say is actually partially because I don't really have too many regrets as far as how I handled things.
Good.
But I wanted to compare 23 and 24 because 23 Nats, I have to say, was probably the best Nats I ever attended in terms of how it was run. Like,
you're welcome,
Laserforce
community.
And I do not like the outcome of the tournament as far as the laser tag, but that goes to show how good.
I thought it was fine.
That goes to show how well the tournament was run because, like I said, most people are going to be unhappy with the laser tag outcomes in a competitive Nats. Absolutely. So all the other variables, the community aspect was more heavily emphasized than ever before. G&D, we talked about that when you came on my podcast as well about building a member base and the wider community. And I feel like I betrayed you a bit, G&D. I do. Because look, I got to come out and enjoy that amazing tournament, go down a waterfall with my buddies and see all the sights and have that life-changing experience. And then I came back and there was absolutely nothing in me that intended to put the player experience in front of me winning Nats.
Right.
That's again an above and beyond type thing, though.
For sure.
And it's
so look,
especially because of everything you did contribute.
I'm not off my pedestal. Quit trying to kick me off the pedestal here. Okay, hold on.
Shut up, resupply jerks.
I spent the last 8 years before that tournament, before Nats 24, trying to become better and win. And there was never a tournament I went into where I had any expectation of taking first or really even top 3, like hoping sometimes for top 3. West Coast 22 was a real kick in the balls, to be honest. The one that we hosted and we took 4th place, very humbling. In fact, that really set me on that path of over preparing for Nats. It's like, I don't care how badly we beat them, but much rather over prepared than under prepare. So and it's not just me. The whole Loveland A team was somewhat in charge of, Joe was the tournament coordinator. I think Joe did a great job. Josiah, John, they have a lot of influence in the in the preparation of the tournament. And all I'm trying to say is that there were some things that were done to maintain the pods thing. I somewhat stand by it. Like, I think it may have been the most competitively fair way to go about it because you want to give the highest ranked team the most advantages. That's why you're playing for first and you're not tanking in the round play. You want to give the first team bye if possible, all that good stuff. So it did benefit us to have the pods straight up. And it was, I think, competitively fair. But yeah, the backlash was pretty significant. I think people had a worse time. There were way less fun games to watch. Well, maybe 8 less fun games to watch when I calculated it out. I hardly spent any time talking to people that tournament. I felt so bad. Applesauce, Erwin, I didn't speak to her till the tournament was over. I didn't even realize that I did that. It was a total accident. I spent all my time napping and talking with my team and playing, because I needed a win. So this tournament, and it was so different for me because I have tried to become an advocate for people who aren't the winning team, who are in the lower ranks, who have been sometimes treated like they're not as important as the higher ranked players. I've really tried to be an advocate for that, and I feel like I betrayed my own kind, so to speak. I don't regret going out to win the tournament and making that my number one priority. I'm saying all this because we're going to run into this as a scene every tournament. There's going to be people who want to win more than they want the community to grow and for people to have fun. My question for you all is, how do we approach that with our goals and expectations for Nats? Are there ways that we need to establish structure in Nats where, regardless of who's running the tournament, certain expectations are followed and met? For example, I imagine after Nats 24, anytime there's a pod in the future, we're doing top 4, bottom 4. I'd be shocked if we're
accurate.
not.
It's probably accurate.
Yeah.
So I think part of part of what will help things with that at the Nats level is continuing to have these smaller, more fun in quotes tournaments outside of Nats. I think that when you're in a scenario where Nats is the only tournament that you even have an option to do in a given year, then I think the weight of that becomes greater. But if there's another 1 or 2 events throughout the year, whether it's an actual random draw type tournament, or a duos or trios, or even even a couple of extended members nights where people are able to go have fun, be social without the weight and expectation of power level 9,000 in every single game. I think that's one of those things that will help kind of smooth out those particular edges. That's my thought on that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I'd have to agree with that overall, is that setting those expectations is important regardless of which tournament you're doing, but having outlets for players of different types, of different mentalities, of different calibers is important, because as much as I would never want to tell a player, oh no, don't come to Nats, like it's not going to be a good, like I want everybody to come to Nats, but sometimes you do run players, it's like, I think Nats is a little too high a level for you right now. And it's terrible because we are not spoiled for having too many teams or something like that out of nationals. We should be trying to build the scene as much as possible. But you do want people to have a good experience, and sometimes people having a good experience is letting them know when they're in over their heads. Like, it would be much better for somebody to skip a situation in which they're going to get rolled and they can't handle it, and that is eventually going to lead them to not come back. Now, if they're okay, if they sign on for that and say, yeah, I'm going to go to Nats, it's my first Nats, I know I'm going to get my ass kicked, and I'm still going to learn as much as possible, that's fine. And that's great. I would encourage people to have that mentality, but not everybody has that mentality. Some people have, it's like, look, I only get 2 weeks of vacation a year. I'm spending one of them to come to a laser tag tournament. I want to have a good time. And if I just get smashed the entire time, I feel like I wasted my time. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, if you're not super confident that you're going to enjoy that experience, then yeah, maybe you do something else with that week of vacation.
It's not even just like their experience, but the way that they affect the people they're playing with. So if you're attending in Nats and you are attending with the expectation that you're a merc, that one can be a tricky one, because if you're a lower skill player, and like DK said, we kind of want to encourage everyone to attend, but if you're a lower skill player and you get thrust onto a team of like relatively good players, being the anchor can kind of suck, and it can suck not only for you but also for the players that you're playing with. So it's a tough one, man. Like if you're setting a team like a site team, then at least your teammates have an expectation of where you're at as a player. And I've been on teams where we've taken somebody who was pretty low at the bottom end of the talent. What?
Pretty average.
Yeah, but we as a team, we know where they're at.
Yep.
We've accepted that, and we've set an expectation for ourselves. I want to touch on something very quickly that you said earlier, Luke. I think it's important that we as a scene understand that the extra stuff, the social stuff, that isn't just on the tournament organizer. In fact, I don't think it's on the tournament organizer at all to cater for. Yeah, like, and the reason why I did that in 2024 is like I'm a fairly social person, as you guys know. Like
Really?
For me, and like I've been around a long enough time where my goals have changed when I go to a tournament. In the times where I've attended tournament, like back in the mid 2000s when we were attending tournaments, our main focus was we're going there to win. That way, I don't give a shit about really anything else. Like, cool, yeah, we get to see everyone else. Cool, we're gonna probably do some fun stuff, but we're going to win. Like, that's our goal. So I think all of us understand how your mindset going into the tournament is like, well, I'm there to win. I don't give a shit if you guys have a good time. I mean, yeah, I want you guys to enjoy yourselves, but also like it's neither here nor there. That my goal is to win.
Everybody on this podcast has been through that at one time or another, and I'm always going to defend the existence of having an event where that is the principal goal. And really,
competitiveness is good.
Yeah, and that's really the only place where it's like we can guarantee that, and keeping the focus on that for a Nats is, I think, appropriate. And it's exactly why we have the other non-Nats events.
Yeah, because they're more of the social. Yeah. But like for me, like I knew that I wanted to I wanted selfishly to also have a good time. Whenever I do this kind of shit, like I make merch and all that kind of stuff, like selfishly do it because I want to have it, and I know that, for me to enjoy it, like if the more people enjoy it, the more I'm going to enjoy it. And that's a selfish thing for me. But like, I think we need to understand as a community that if you want rad things to happen, make them happen. Like, don't wait for somebody else to make them happen for you.
For sure.
I just think that, like, for me, if I can facilitate it, I know that it's gonna be cool. But that's an over and above thing. It's kind of, I think, the same thought process when we were doing the media stuff for last year. It's like, well, we have a, like, for you guys, you've got a certain way you want to portray the Loveland site, or the Loveland Nats experience. And for me, I was like, I want to put, like, nobody's done this before. I want to kind of see what is achievable from a like a broadcasting kind of perspective. But none of that stuff is maybe once it happens once, then that becomes the expectation. But like, I think we need to understand that because it's all player driven. If you want cool, fun stuff to happen, make it happen. But it's up to you.
But it's honestly one of the things that I love about this community is that pretty much everything, aside from obviously getting the permission of facility owners to use their sites and their equipment, but everything is player run, and it's all driven by player passion because there's no money at stake in any of these events. And that's something that I do need to remind myself sometimes is, hey, not everybody is a crazy person like you, DK, who thinks about laser tag 24/7, and you can't treat them like professional athletes, like they have this set of expectations and lifestyle they need to follow. But that's the closest thing that we have, but trying just to remind ourselves of that. But it's just, hey, community, we can all aspire to be better, but also give yourselves a pat on the back because we have to do all this together, and we all do it for love of the game.
Yeah, you all make some really good points. Among which, like, yes, there were some variables out of our control. Yeah, Than?
We're very good like that. We're good like that on making good points.
Very excellent points. I think that is a hard point that people probably don't like to hear, DK, that it's okay if people don't enjoy themselves at Nats, because the expectation is we are here to compete, and this is the one time people get to compete. And just because, and I don't know if I'm the only one who feels this way. I imagine some others on my team might feel this way, or people who have hosted events in the past. Like, if other people didn't have fun and I wasn't doing something actively about it, maybe that's not my responsibility. But as someone who was running, helping to run the site, now I was trying to run the stream too. I think that was also why.
Yeah,
you're doing a lot, man. I was like, you're doing a lot.
But that, and to your point, Steve-O, this is actually something I was frankly disappointed in with the general community. Is we made a group chat for after Nats events or pre-Nats events, just things to do like we did in Auckland. I was literally working my full-time job and doing the stream, so I decided just just this once, like, I'm not going to even comment in this. I'm going to let other people handle it. And nothing happened. No one did anything. I don't know what was different.
Pretty common, man. It's common. You need a social butterfly in there.
You need a prime mover. Is really it's just somebody to get the ball rolling. But again, I'm going to say it's not necessarily a fair comparison because you're talking about other than Steve, pretty much everybody else who was on that after Nats trip was all people who were coming from out of country, who were coming to this magical little island for this experience.
It was magical.
Taking nothing away from Colorado. Colorado is amazing. But it didn't necessarily have the same juice for a lot of people because a lot of them were traveling domestically.
If they wanted to spend a week
at Rocky Mountain National Park, they have other opportunities to do that. That's not going to be their one time they're going to do this.
Yeah.
For most people who went to that Auckland tournament, though, this is out of if you're lucky, maybe 1 to 3 times that you're going to go to New Zealand in your entire life. So you want to pack more stuff in. So again, I'm not just trying to blow sunshine up your ass. But I'm just saying
All right.
I don't think it's really a fair comparison there. That
it is
as much as I love Colorado, it's not the same as going to New Zealand.
Yeah, it's definitely not an apples to apples comparison there.
Yeah,
it's just not.
But I think if we had because there was a significant lack of Australasians. There was no Australasians. Nobody from down here traveled, and I think that's a big one. Like if we went, then you might have seen more activity like that happen.
Because they would have made plans, and other people would have wanted to tag along. So something would have.
But I think in the lead up to this year's Nats for Brisbane, I've talked to some of the locals there, and it's hard when sorry, let me rephrase that. It's easier to do some cool stuff when there's a local helping to kind of facilitate it, because they have a good idea of, all right, logistically this is kind of how the trip needs to be to make sense for travel and to be the most efficient way to do it, and yada yada yada. But it does take somebody to be like, all right, this is what I'm doing, who's coming with me? Or this is the cool things that you guys need to do, who's going to go do it? Otherwise it just doesn't really work. I was going to make another point, but I lost it.
You can only make so many.
Well,
you guys have to run out eventually.
Podcast then.
Yeah, just gone. No more points.
I mean, honestly,
save it for your own podcast.
Y'all are inspiring me a little bit just to call out. Maybe you guys are right. Maybe I'm being a little down, just reflecting and hearing some people speak out and about different things that they particularly did not enjoy about Nats, but that's fine. I think at most Nats, I've had some pretty significant things I did not like as well, and this that happens. But
you can't please everybody all the time.
Odin,
I remember my point.
Oh, go ahead.
Do it.
I remember my point. My point was, earlier I think somebody said, I think DK said it about, the competitiveness. Like people, you want highly competitive, and not everyone's going to enjoy that. But there is a distinction between competitiveness and abusiveness, and I think
100%.
That's the line I think some people cross and have crossed in the past, and that when that line gets crossed, it's such a killer for the vibe of that tournament. Like if people have gone from being competitive to being abusive, there's no space in our community, or at least there shouldn't be, but there has been in the past for people to attack others. I think we've probably all seen it. It can't happen. That sort of shit. And when it does happen, because it does happen, people need to do everything in their power to, once they calm down, to remedy their mistake. Heartfelt apologize and learn from the issue, because when that doesn't happen as well, then you double down on the bullshit. It's no bueno. That was my point.
It's a really important point. One of the biggest things that will push people away from the tournament scene. So
And it has.
I'm so proud
Oh,
of how the community's rallied around and pushed those people out.
100% has. 100% has.
Well, I think a big like the feedback I got from your guys' tournament is whilst there was some negativity, there was high competitiveness, and most of it was in a positive way, which I think is what you can kind of hope for. Yeah.
I'd say so, and I think that's partially due to people who are not conflict avoidant being willing to step up and put a stop to things early on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have developed a lot of those people in the community, which is really good.
Awesome. Yeah. That's great.
And more people are going to therapy now and working on themselves. So we have a more mentally healthy community than we once did. And
That's
you can
actually
learn
So
from,
woke.
hey, we can learn from the mistakes of the past because
It's a good thing.
yeah, when there were some of those blow-ups back in the bad old days, it's because by and large there weren't a lot of wise old men around who had seen 20 years of this crap to have to tell people like, oh, we could do something better. But honestly, the younger generation has done a lot to improve the experience of tournaments.
Yeah.
I think in some ways because there is a little bit healthier attitude.
Well, their
toward
tolerance
competitive situation. Yeah.
for horse shit is way lower than ours. Like
Yeah.
for us, it was
Exactly.
how high can you tolerate shenanigans will determine how many competitions you keep going back to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's not the standard that we want to be setting. But
Not at all.
Just from my own point of view, I think that it is much better now than it was 20 years ago.
100%.
And it's
Even
in a
10?
much healthier place. Yeah, even
10
years ago, quite honestly. Yeah, just a lot of things are in a good place. And I think about that a lot when we had kind of our concluding dinner. A bunch of us went out to Cheesecake Factory and we're in Syracuse, which is not any place that's any particular fancy place, but I was sitting at a table with 6 people that I have known for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in some cases, and just being there, sharing a drink, sharing some food, sharing some stories, and the fact that we've all been in this for so long, like that, I don't know. I have trouble expressing exactly what that feeling is other than just, it's good. It feels good. I like when that thing happens. But since I'm not, a healthier, younger person, I don't have the emotional vocabulary to talk about those things other than just, it's a positive experience and I want it to happen again.
Just a thumbs up emoji.
Yeah. That's the extent of my emotional maturity. So thumbs up emoji.
Yeah.
And just on how people, that's a really good point. Like G&D, you put together that trip for 23. I just noted that player-led activities and bonuses, things that each individual brings to the tournament and sometimes shares with the community, often is a huge defining flavor of different tournaments. Now, a few minutes ago, I said Odin's name and then let G&D make his point. So I feel like Odin's fist has been sitting here just like, what? What is it? What were you about to say about me? And that's the end of the podcast. No. I was gonna say,
Sorry, Odin.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll tell them off the air.
Odin and Autumn made probably like some of the coolest merch I'd seen at any tournament and brought it to Nats 24. They had a whole shop in one of our party rooms. Like, I've never seen a shop before, and I wish I had more time to spend in there and like get to know how they made all that and see the interacting. Nolan Sweets made a bunch of custom SM5 water bottles and brought them for people and dog tags, and there were shot glasses, and like that was a cool defining thing that people brought. And the stream itself is going to be like, I imagine someday we're going to get to that standard again at some point, but it'll be a standout for that reason too.
That was very much that's very much a high watermark. Like I think back to like the very first time we ever dreamed a tournament, and I feel like it was like 2012 in Sacramento, Because
I think we might have done it in 11 in Syracuse because I feel like Beans was a big driving
maybe
force
we
behind
did.
it. And obviously we'd had stuff like we had game screen recordings from Ballarat and even from some of the Chula Vista games, but that's different than having a live stream. So, but it's somewhere around the 2011, 2012 range. Whatever it was, regardless.
Yeah, I just have a clear memory of like Sanch like whipping out his credit card to pay for something, to pay for a streaming service so we could actually do it. Like that is my memory, and I just can't remember if it was Syracuse or Sacramento.
Must have been Q's. We did the live stream in Sacramento, and I think Beans took care of all the graphics and stuff for that particular stream. But
Okay.
I remember, I think we broadcasted to Facebook, because myself, Virus, Raya, I think there was a few others that jumped on the mic and were like commentating games, and I'm pretty sure it was just a camera pointing at us and us broadcasting to Facebook, watching a screen, so you could just see us looking at a game screen.
Well, the overarching point being
Another point.
Yeah, occasionally I have one when I start talking. Whether I get there or not is a whole other question, but occasionally I have one. Is just the level to which that is, improved over the years in terms obviously of available technology and whatnot. Like obviously Twitch making it super easy to do things now is like, okay, cool, fine. But being able to bring people in who aren't at the tournament and being able to like let them see what's happening, even whether it's as basic as, oh, you know what, we're just going to broadcast the score screen and do Twitch chat with it and that's it, we're not going to do anything else extra. That's still fucking great. Like that is still so cool. But then also having this 2024 high bar mark of, oh my god, player profiles and amazing graphics, and oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna revert the score screen back to classic so we can do cooler graphics around it. Like just so much amazing things that like these are.
Dude, you know what was cool about that? Like we had
everything.
Yeah, all of the stuff. No, we had like family members of like people playing in the games, watching the stream and understanding. Like they were more of an understanding of what actually was happening in the game than they otherwise would have, and that was rad. Like we had banter with like a couple of people's like mums, I think, and like somebody's wife, and like they were like, oh, I'm so stoked, like this is gonna sorry, I got distracted with something. They were super stoked at like what was happening in the game. They were invested in the game. They were able to connect with the game in a way that I don't think they would have in previous years, which was like that's what you guys made happen in Loveland. Like, yeah,
we all made it together, and I've kept you guys so long, we should probably start wrapping up soon, but I've got a big list of things here, and that's just one. Maybe that's a big moral here, is that every single year the tournaments have improved and improved because of player innovation, because of passion, because of people not saying no to bullshit, and we're making more and more entry points for people to enter the community, and it really is a big family. Friendship is magic. The end. Thank you, everybody.
A+ notes.
It's a shame that we're not like recording the screen, because this whole time, so Than's in a real dark room and he's wearing like a black long sleeve shirt, and so he's just a floating head and hands. Yeah.
Oh, I loved when you put up your hands. It was great.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the glove boss in Smash Bros. Anyway.
Yeah, it does. And G&D, I want you to know that I'm just now getting around to individually cropping out all the matches from the stream, And I'm gonna finally get to go back and like hear all the commentary you did, make it more accessible for people to like find their games. Yeah, you and Scythe.
Sick.
Scythe is killing it on the mic.
Dude, he was so
thankful
good.
for him.
Me too. It would have been so shit to do it just by myself, and I think the community would have just been like, "Oh, we're over hearing this dude talk. Like, shut up." Scythe was so good. He nailed it. It was awesome.
It's like, Steve-O, we know you like to hear yourself talk, but this is ridiculous.
And mute. Wouldn't be the first time the community has muted me while I've been on stream. Anyway, keep saying nice things about me. I love it.
Yeah, and you got the best hair. So, tournaments. Here's what I compiled over the course of the last few hours. I just kind of wrote some of the bullet points. That, first of all, when making a high quality tournament, it's about the tag. People are here around the tag, and the other things are add-ons. If the tag isn't quality, it's not going to feel like a great tournament. But there is an importance of community. Relationships build over time. They keep people coming back and even hanging out outside of tag. We need catharsis, emotional release. That we expect intensity in tournaments and for people to have chances to let it out and come back to earth and be friends again afterwards. We want competitive opportunity for people to show their stuff. We need to know your audience when you are making a tournament. Is this a Nats? Is it geared towards newer players? Is it geared towards lots of people across many sites or full teams? Than's got his negotiables and non-negotiables. You should not change the tournament after people commit. We noted that the viewer experience is becoming an increasingly large part of the tournament. We need good coordinators who know what they're doing and take help from people. We want time efficiency, a sportsmanlike culture, people not abusing penalties, people not arguing over penalties, people not being abusive to each other, those still being competitive. I promise that I am close to done. Setting expectations on players and Nats and then enforcing those expectations, maybe like ahead of time. For example, establishing how this tournament's going to go before getting there and having things that aren't dictated by people necessarily who care more about winning than the tournament experience. And all the player-led activities and bonuses. And lastly, we just talked about the difference between Nats and all the other tournament formats. And when you're putting one on, get your goals in line and aim for them. Do you guys think I missed anything?
No, I think that's pretty good, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, now everyone, roadmap for anybody who's looking to get into this.
Now everyone should have perfect tournaments from here on out. All right, we laid it all out. Don't mess it up.
Get it done.
Get it done. Yeah, I think that's I think those are good points. Fuck, I love me some points.
My last question for each of you is: if there's one thing you want players to take away from this discussion, what would it be?
Steve's got cool hair.
Oh yeah.
Steve definitely has cool hair.
Yeah, for me, it's about goals and expectations.
Know how to embrace the value of competition while still setting a culture of respect and sportsmanship.
I can't add anything to what these two already just said. Oh, no. Yes, I can. Take the help where it's given. There we go.
True that.
Excellent. And my thing will just be to echo what they've all been saying. Be the change you want to see. If you don't like something in the community, speak up, make it better yourself, and help innovate with everybody else, because we're all in this together. Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. Y'all hijacked my podcast, so why don't we do your outro? Steve-O?
If you guys want to get the real scoop on everything Laserforce and Space Marines related, make sure you go to @LovelandLaserTag.
@Laser
on YouTube.
@LovelandLaserForce.
It's @the Resupply on Twitch.
Nah, just I don't know, man. Like, get amongst the scene. Get out there and form some decades long friendships with your fellow contemporaries. But for this week on the much better podcast, I've been Guy Next Door.
Hush.
I've been deep.
I've been Van.
And I've been Mischief.
Always remember, always remember to backtrack, kids. We will see you next time. Ka kite.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Luke.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Bye,
Luke.
everyone.